Hey guys, tonight we're tuning into something just beneath the noise, like walking into a crowded room and instead of hearing chatter you hear patterns, tones, emotional currents. You feel the heat of tension, the buzz of excitement, the slump of sadness, and no one has even spoken to you yet. What if you could read people not by what they say, but by what they mean? What if your brain could turn on emotional radar like a superhero detects heartbeats through walls? That's what tonight's about. You're standing in front of a friend who says, "I'm fine," but your mind doesn't buy it. Your radar flickers, eyes too wide, smile just a hair too stiff. She's not fine, and you know it. This isn't magic, it's emotional intelligence. And you're not developing it like a new skill. You're uncovering it, like a flashlight in a dark room you've been in your whole life. You catch yourself thinking about yesterday's meeting. Your boss said, "Good job," but it felt more like a routine sign-off. Your stomach fluttered. You thought it was insecurity, but now you realize it was your emotional radar pinging. You sensed indifference, maybe even annoyance behind the compliment. You're not paranoid. You're paying attention. Emotional intelligence isn't about being polite or agreeable. It's about reading the undercurrents, knowing when a joke masks resentment, when silence means disapproval, when loudness means fear. You begin to see facial expressions as clues, micro-reactions, that slight brow twitch, the hesitation before a nod. It's like subtitles are suddenly switched on in real life, and you wonder how you ever lived without them. But here's the catch. The radar doesn't just point outward. It swings back in, too. You notice your own reactions more. That moment you get defensive over nothing, now you pause. Why did that bother me? You trace the feeling like a wire back to the battery. You realize it's not about what they said, it's about what you believed it meant. Take the cashier who didn't say thank you. Yesterday, that would have annoyed you. Today, you spot the thought. They're rude. They think I'm invisible. Then, calmly, you respond, or maybe they're exhausted, or maybe it's not about me at all. And just like that, the storm passes. Emotional radar doesn't make you soft, it makes you strategic. You stop wasting energy on invented offenses. You stop filling in blanks with stories. You stop assuming you're the main character in everyone else's thoughts. There's a weird peace in it, like someone just turned the volume down on life. 3 light examples, real quick. You're talking to someone who keeps checking their phone. Instead of stewing in irritation, your mind gently suggests, maybe they're anxious, maybe they just got bad news. You don't take it personally, and the knot in your stomach never forms. You walk into a tense office. No one says a word, but you feel the pressure in the air. Instead of ignoring it or cracking a dumb joke, you choose silence, letting the moment breathe until someone else blinks. Power move. You catch yourself about to snap at someone you love. Pause, breathe, ask, wait, what am I really reacting to? The tension breaks. You respond instead of react. Relationship saved. You're no longer at the mercy of everyone else's emotional storms, or your own. You're starting to walk into situations with radar quietly humming. You don't need to fix people, you just need to see them. And now, you do. You enter the room like you've been doing it for years. Same shoes, same doorway creak, same nod to the coat rack that still leans to the left. But this time something's different. You don't just walk in, you scan. The way the energy shifts as soon as you cross the threshold, you clock it. The coworker who's suddenly too quiet, The manager with the pasted-on smile. The intern spinning their pen like it's a fidget spinner with a vengeance. You're not paranoid. You're just watching the movie that everyone else is pretending doesn't exist. You're reading the room. Not literally reading signs. No, you're sensing, decoding, translating. Body language becomes a language you didn't realize you spoke. The slump in the shoulders, that's stress. The tight jaw, hidden frustration. The loud laugh after a neutral joke, insecurity dressed as extroversion. You notice how people sit, where they angle their feet, who avoids eye contact, and who's trying too hard to hold it. The room is a living story, and you've stopped reading just the dialogue. Now you're catching the stage directions too. You don't interrupt anymore. You let people sit in their pauses, their silences. You give them space, and in doing so, they tell you more than words ever could. You become the person who always seems to know what's really going on. The one who says, something's off today, and they're always right. Not because you're magic, because you pay attention to what most people ignore. Let's look at this in action. 3 quick moments. You're at a dinner party. One guest is dominating the conversation, but something's off. The laughter around the table feels hollow, scattered. You don't chime in. You ask the quietest person a question. Suddenly, the energy shifts. You read it, you steered it, and no one even noticed. You're in a meeting. Your boss is agreeing with everything, but their foot keeps tapping, and their pen's been clicking for 3 minutes straight. You make your point shorter, more direct. Afterward, they thank you for getting to the point. You smiled because you didn't just speak, you calibrated. A friend vents to you, but never looks up from their coffee. You don't rush in with advice. You just sit, silent, present. And that silence, it invites trust. They keep talking, this time with truth. Reading the room means responding to what's really happening, not what people pretend is happening. You become fluent in emotional subtext. You realize that power isn't always the loudest voice. It's often the one who knows when not to speak. You learn that influence isn't just about being confident, it's about being attuned. And here's the most underrated skill: adjusting without losing yourself. You don't fake smiles. You don't perform. You shift gears intentionally. You become water in a cup, fluid, aware, still distinctly you. You don't enter rooms anymore. You navigate them. You don't just attend meetings. You map them. You notice who's holding power and who's trying too hard to fake it. Suddenly, small talk isn't small. It's reconnaissance. That awkward laugh? Intel. That overuse of just kidding? A defense mechanism. And now you respond like a quiet tactician, not with volume, but with awareness. You say less, but your words hit harder because they're tuned, timed, and trimmed. You start to feel the moment people relax around you. You create that. And it's addictive. Reading the room isn't about control, it's about connection. It's about walking through life with your eyes open while the rest of the world squints through assumptions. And the more you see, the less you need to prove. Because when you can read a room, you don't have to dominate it. You just have to understand it. You wake up to a thought, not a full sentence, just a flicker, a whisper of anxiety before you even open your eyes. You're already behind. Behind what? Who knows? Deadlines, dreams, dishes, the version of you swore you'd become by now. But instead of pushing the thought aside like usual, you stop. You catch it. Like snatching a paper out of the wind before it flies too far. You caught your brain mid-script. And suddenly something strange happens. You talk back. This is the beginning of hijacking your own thoughts. Not in a forceful, wrestle your brain to the ground kind of way. No, this is finesse. This is redirecting the current instead of damming the river. You start to hear your internal monologue like it's someone else. Because sometimes it is. It's your 5th grade teacher, your ex, your mum, a stranger online. Voices that got stuck on replay. Now, you press pause. Instead of, I can't, you ask, why not? Instead of, they won't like this, you ask, do I? Instead of, this is just how I am, you say, but is it how I want to be? You begin to spot the loops. Loop. I always mess this up. New thought. No, I have messed it up before. That's different. Loop. I'll never be confident. New thought. Confidence isn't born, it's practiced, like flossing or lying on LinkedIn. It's subtle, quiet, but you're rewriting scripts that have lived in your head for years. Let's slow it down and zoom into 3 small hijack moments. You're about to message someone and feel that tightness in your chest. Don't bother them. They'll think you're needy. You pause. Is that thought useful? True? Necessary? You reframe it. I have something kind to share. You hit send, calmly. You check the mirror. You look exhausted. But instead of spiraling, you smile and say, yeah, I am tired, and still showing up. Now the reflection changes, not physically, but emotionally. You look like someone who's trying. That's enough. You're late on a project. The thought says, you're lazy. You stop. You say, I missed the mark this time. I can do better. No drama, just data. You begin to treat your thoughts like apps on a phone. Some pop up, some crash. Some run quietly in the background, draining your battery. And now, you're the one managing them. You delete what's not serving you. You update beliefs that are outdated. You realize most thoughts are suggestions, not commands. You're not at war with your mind. You're reprogramming it, one thought at a time. You learn to interrupt yourself, gently. When you're spiraling, you say, is this thought useful? Is it true? Would I say this to a friend? You start asking better questions, and your brain, like a loyal dog, starts fetching better answers. It's weird how your day changes when your inner voice isn't constantly dunking on you. You're not suddenly cured of self-doubt or negativity. That's not the goal. The goal is to catch it, question it, and shift it just enough to take the edge off. Over time, your brain learns you don't entertain every worry. You don't believe every self-insult. You don't chase every fear like it's gospel. And with that, space opens up. You can breathe again, focus again, create again. The noise doesn't disappear. but it fades into the background, like static behind your favorite song. Because now, you're the one choosing what plays next. You're halfway through the day when it pipes up. That voice, you know the one. Not dramatic or loud, just steady, always on time, always unimpressed. That wasn't good enough. You sigh. You were just trying to do your job. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but did it really need a full internal takedown? Apparently, yes. According to the inner critic, the part of your mind that treats every mistake like a criminal offense and every success like an accident. But today, something different happens. You don't argue with it. You meet it. Hey, you say to that voice. Who even put you in charge? Silence. A flicker. Maybe a twitch of panic from the critic. Because for once, you're not just taking its word as law. This is the moment you start taming the inner critic. Not silencing it, not killing it off, just shrinking it down to size. A demotion. From harsh judge to mildly annoying backseat driver. The inner critic has been useful, sometimes. It stopped you from sending that one risky text. It made you double-check your resume. But it also told you that you weren't qualified for things you could have crushed. It told you you weren't ready when you were already late. Now you're curious. Where did this voice come from? Maybe it sounds like your dad when he sighed a little too hard after your B+. Maybe it sounds like your teacher from 4th grade who wrote sloppy in red ink across your essay. Or maybe it's you, from 10 years ago, still replaying that one awkward moment like it's a feature film. But you're not 10. You're not in that classroom. And that voice, it's quoting lines from a script that doesn't apply anymore. So here's what you do. You give it a name, seriously. Ah, there goes Marvin again. Marvin is nervous, judgmental, and thinks perfection is safety. But Marvin isn't in charge of your life. You let it speak, but only during office hours. You set boundaries. When the voice says, "You didn't do enough today," you say, "Cool, let's talk about that after dinner." Spoiler, you won't. You thank it. Yes, thank it. Thanks for looking out for me, inner critic. I know you're trying to protect me from failure, but I've got this now. That single moment of kindness rewrites your relationship with it. Your critic thrives on extremes. You're amazing, or you're worthless. You nailed it, or you failed it. But you start living in the middle. I did okay. I showed up. I can improve. And just like that, the critic gets bored. You catch the difference between improvement and punishment. One says, "That presentation could have flowed better. Let's revise the outline." The other says, "You're terrible at public speaking. Don't try that again." Guess which one helps you grow? Let's drop into a few moments where you reframe. You didn't go to the gym like you planned. Marvin says, "Typical. You'll never be consistent." You say, "One missed day doesn't define a pattern." You stretch for 5 minutes instead. You forgot someone's name mid-conversation. The voice jumps in. "You're so socially awkward." You chuckle and say, "I'm human, so are they." And the conversation continues. You bomb a pitch. Voice says, "You blew your only chance." You correct it. "I learned what not to do next time. The next chance will be better." You're not ignoring flaws. You're just refusing to let them be the full story. You become your own hype man and your own coach. Constructive, compassionate, no unnecessary cruelty. And eventually, that voice softens. It gets quieter. It starts sounding less like a bully and more like a nervous intern trying their best. You smile when it pipes up, because now it's just background noise in the life you're finally driving. You wake up, stumble toward your morning routine, and somewhere between brushing your teeth and scrolling notifications, you make 10 decisions. Most of them tiny, forgettable. But by lunch, those tiny choices have already nudged your whole day down a different path. You chose to get out of bed instead of scrolling. You chose tea instead of coffee. You chose to text someone first, or not. You chose to speak up in a meeting, or stay quiet. They feel like nothing in the moment, but together, they're building your default settings. This is the truth no one brags about on Instagram. Micro decisions make empires. It's never the one big leap that changes your life. It's the 5-second pause before reacting, the 15-minute reading session before bed, the breath you take before replying to that passive-aggressive message, the choice to go for a walk instead of doom scrolling for another hour. Your mind doesn't crave big wins. It craves consistency. And the beauty of mastering your mind is realizing you don't have to do massive things. You just have to do small things deliberately. Think of it like compound interest, but for habits. One kind thought today might not change your life, but 300 kind thoughts over a year, you're not just nicer, you're rewired. Let's zoom into a few examples. You're walking past the laundry pile. The thought hits, do it later, but you pause. You say, later never feels like now. So you fold 5 shirts, not the whole basket, just 5. Victory. You get a text that annoys you. Your impulse, clap back. But your thumb hovers. You breathe. You close the app. Your nervous system thanks you later. You consider skipping your journaling. It's late. You're tired. But instead of writing a full page, you jot down one sentence. Today was weird, but I'm proud I didn't snap. Boom. Momentum saved. You start to notice the fork in the road, even in the smallest moments. And here's the secret. Each time you choose a better path, even slightly better, you vote for the person you're becoming. People think change is fireworks. It's not. It's a soft series of nudges, a quiet rhythm, like rain forming a canyon over centuries. You become more strategic, not in business terms, but in life terms. You know your patterns. You know where you sabotage yourself. And instead of trying to overhaul your personality overnight, you just interrupt the loop. When your brain says, this is pointless, you answer, but what if it's not? When it says, you always quit, you reply, not this time. When it groans, what's the point? You whisper, progress, not perfection. Over time, the gaps close. You show up when you don't feel like it. You apologize faster. You scroll less. You stretch more. You become the person you used to wish you'd turn into someday. And someday, it turns into Tuesday, like today. You no longer chase motivation like a slippery balloon. You build rituals that hold you steady, even when life doesn't, even when your mood's trash, even when your to-do list is longer than your lifespan, even when no one's watching, especially then. You realize the person who decides your direction isn't some future better you. It's the version of you that picks between 2 small options, over and over and over. And suddenly every moment is a vote. Every thought is a brushstroke. Every tiny choice adds up. You're not waiting to be transformed. You're just deciding quietly to keep choosing on purpose. Your brain feels like a browser with 27 tabs open, most of them frozen, some playing mysterious background music, and one you swear you didn't open. You try to focus, but there's a dull buzzing under everything. It's not noise you can hear, it's noise you can feel. Welcome to mental clutter, where emotional pollution lives rent-free. You don't need more time. You need space. Not physical space, though cleaning your desk wouldn't hurt. You need mental clarity, room for your thoughts to breathe without bumping into a dozen anxious echoes. The problem isn't that you're thinking, it's that you're thinking everything, all at once. You start answering an email, then suddenly remember you forgot to text your cousin, then panic about not exercising, then open a YouTube tab to just check something. Then, 45 minutes later, you're in a conspiracy video about lizard people. Again. Mental clutter isn't laziness, it's unfiltered access. Too many inputs, too many priorities, no triage. Your mind is trying to hold the past, present, and future all at once, and it's exhausted. But now, something shifts. You realize you don't have to think every thought that wanders in. You don't have to believe them, follow them, or even finish them. You can declutter. Not with dramatic fanfare, no monk-level silence retreat, just simple, intentional mental housekeeping. Start here, the mind dump. Once a day, brain vomit everything onto a page. No grammar, no structure. Right. Need to buy dish soap. What if I'm wasting my life? That squirrel outside is jacked. The goal? Empty the queue. You're not solving. You're offloading. Your brain sighs in relief. The one-tab rule. You pick one focus. Just one, even if it's folding laundry. You say, "This is the tab I'm using." And when another thought tries to open a new one, you whisper, "Not now. You'll get your turn." The audit. Ask yourself, what am I carrying that I don't need? Worry about things out of your control? Guilt from a conversation 2 years ago? Expectations you didn't sign up for? Thank them. Let them go. You're not a mental storage unit. And something wild starts happening. Your inner noise gets quieter. Your memory gets better. You stop walking into rooms wondering why you're there. You're not distracted because you're bad at focus. You're distracted because your brain is overbooked. When you declutter mentally, emotions start behaving better too, because they're not squeezed between deadlines and digital noise. You realize most of your anxiety is just untidy thoughts stacked like Jenga bricks. Most of your stress isn't about now, it's about what you're holding on to from before. And most of your overwhelm, not from doing too much, but from thinking too much at once. Let's slow this with 3 real-world moments. You're about to snap at someone, not because of them, but because you've had 5 unspoken stressors piling up since breakfast. You pause, breathe, say, "I need a second." And in that second, you resort the stack. You lie in bed with your brain doing backflips. Instead of forcing sleep, you whisper, "It's okay not to solve this now." You picture each thought floating down a lazy river. Sleep follows. You're juggling too much. instead of pushing harder, you cancel one non-essential task. Just one. That single freed-up slot feels like a doorway opened in your chest. Mental clarity isn't a destination. It's a daily sweep. You don't have to burn everything down. You just have to stop letting random thoughts dictate your mood like a broken remote. Every time you create space, your mind says, "Finally, I can hear myself think." And then it whispers something you're in the middle of a conversation. Someone asks a question. You feel the pressure to respond. But instead of filling the air with words, you just pause. 3 seconds. 5. The silence stretches, not awkward but weighty. You watch their eyes shift, their body adjust, their breath hitch. And then it happens. They speak again, revealing more, saying what they really meant the first time. That's the moment you understand. Silence isn't empty. It's power. You've spent years avoiding silence. We all do. We fill it with chatter, notifications, nervous laughter, filler words like just and because silence makes us feel exposed, like we have to prove something. But when you master your mind, silence becomes your strategy. You start seeing how most people use words to hide, to dodge, to distract, to distance themselves from real feelings. But you sit with it. You let silence hang like morning fog, and suddenly people start revealing their truest selves. Silence becomes a mirror, and most people don't know what to do when they finally see themselves in it. Here's how silence starts serving you. In conversation, you pause before responding, not to be dramatic, but to process. People lean in when you do this. You don't interrupt anymore. You create space. And in that space, truth shows up. In arguments, you don't fire back immediately. You let your silence do the talking. It unseals egos. It calms storms. It says, "I'm not here to win, I'm here to understand." In decisions, you sit with discomfort. You resist the urge to do something just to feel in control. You wait, and that waiting often brings clarity no action ever could. You realize silence isn't the absence of thought. It's the clearing of it. It's the eye of the storm where the wind finally stops. It's the hallway between rooms. Quiet, sure, necessary. Let's bring this to life with 3 calming scenes. You're on a walk, no headphones, just your feet, the wind, your breath. For the first time in days, your thoughts don't compete with content. They stretch, settle. A new idea forms. You're in a conversation with someone venting. You don't interrupt, don't fix it. Just nod. Let them speak until they empty out. And when they finish, they whisper, "Thank you. I needed that." You realize they didn't want advice. They wanted space. You're journaling, but instead of writing, you sit there, pen in hand, watching thoughts swirl without chasing them. Once you no longer fear silence. You wield it. And in doing so, you shift the energy of rooms, not by force, but by the sheer weight of your calm. Remember this. Silence isn't emptiness. It's a container. And now, you decide what it holds. You're watching a conversation unfold. Maybe it's your team, maybe your family. Maybe your group chat melting down over dinner plans. And for once, you're not jumping in. You're not reacting. not correcting, not trying to win. You're thinking, quietly, calmly, strategically, because finally you've stopped overthinking and started strategic thinking. See, overthinking is loud, frantic, a mental spin cycle that leaves you more exhausted than enlightened. Strategic thinking? It's chess, not checkers. It's seeing the board, not just the next move. Overthinking asks, what if it all goes wrong? Strategic thinking asks, what's the best outcome? And how do I nudge things there? You're not escaping reality. You're mapping it, like a cartographer with patience and a Sharpie. You start treating thoughts like blueprints instead of storm warnings. You don't just worry about what could happen. You consider what you'll do if it does. Let's draw the line. Overthinking. You replay a comment someone made 13 times at 2 a.m. Strategic thinking. You ask, is that worth a clarifying conversation tomorrow? Done. Overthinking. You don't post that video because what if people think it's dumb? Strategic thinking. You analyze what worked last time, tweak it, post, and move on. You'll know by the data, not your spiraling gut. Overthinking. You keep asking if you're ready. Strategic thinking. You ask what ready looks like, then build a checklist, and boom, you're 70% there. Overthinking is reactive. Strategic thinking is proactive. It doesn't mean you move slowly. It means you move intentionally. You don't flood your brain with hypotheticals. You look for patterns, predict tendencies, and stay 10 steps ahead without needing to announce it. Your thinking becomes more structured, more refined. You anticipate not to control people, but to support yourself, because nothing's more grounding than knowing you have a plan if the plan fails. You stop assuming the worst and start prepping for whatever. And the wild thing? You don't look like you're thinking hard. You look chill, collected, maybe even mysterious. Because the loudest thinker in the room, usually the most anxious. You've gone quiet and sharp. Let's peek into 3 snapshots. You're asked a tough question. Everyone waits. Instead of rushing, you pause, breathe. Your answer lands with more weight because it's not rushed, it's chosen. You're in a group, making last-minute decisions. Chaos. You step back, spot the missing link, and say, let's do this instead. Simple, direct. Everyone exhales. A friend spirals about a drama that hasn't even happened yet. You say, what do you want to happen? Let's plan for that. The conversation shifts. You've redirected the whole vibe. Strategic thinking gives you distance, not from people, but from panic. You don't get dragged into every fire. You assess whether it even needs water, or if it's just smoke. You realize, just because your brain can invent problems, doesn't mean they exist. And just because someone else is in crisis, doesn't mean you need to join them. You can be present and clear-headed, empathetic and practical, soft and sharp. You start responding to situations like a seasoned navigator, not because you always know what's next, but because you trust that you'll handle it when it comes. Strategic thinking isn't cold. It's calm. It's choosing your next move with your future self in mind. And in a world full of mental noise and emotional chaos, Your mind becomes the quiet, focused one that gets results. You start noticing patterns in people, not like labels, but like puzzle pieces clicking together. Each gesture, each word, each pause suddenly fits into a bigger picture. People stop being problems to solve and become puzzles to understand. You watch your colleague avoid eye contact when asked about the deadline. It's not avoidance, it's fear. You don't confront, you gently offer support. Your friend's sarcasm? Not hostility, a shield against vulnerability. The boss's tight smile? Pressure, not disdain. You realize people aren't enemies. They're just complicated. And suddenly their behavior feels less like a personal attack and more like a secret code. You start decoding instead of reacting. The difference is like night and day. In the past, you might have snapped at passive aggression. Now, you see it's a cry for recognition. You don't take rude comments personally. You see them as their own struggles, not your failures. 3 quick stories. A coworker interrupts you mid-sentence. Your first impulse? Anger. But now, you notice their impatience comes from stress, not disrespect. You respond calmly, and the meeting flows better. Your partner shuts down after a disagreement. Instead of pushing, you give space, knowing their retreat is their way to process, not rejection. A stranger cuts you off in traffic. Instead of road rage, you imagine they might be rushing to an emergency. Your grip on the wheel loosens. People puzzles teach you patience. They teach you empathy. They teach you that your interpretation isn't the only reality. You learn to hold space for others' imperfections and your own. When you stop seeing people as problems, you stop carrying their weight, and your mind, finally, gets to breathe. You catch yourself smiling at a thought, the one that's been looping in your head, quietly shaping who you are. You become what you think. It's not just a cliché pinned on Pinterest boards or whispered in self-help podcasts. It's true. Your thoughts aren't just mental noise, they're seeds. Seeds that grow into feelings, habits, realities. You realize that if your thoughts are mostly worry, doubt, or negativity, then those are the weeds taking over your garden. But if you plant kindness, curiosity, and courage, those are the flowers that bloom. Every thought is a choice. You can water it, or you can let it wither. It's tempting to say, but my brain just thinks what it thinks. Sure, your brain throws random crap at you sometimes, but you're not a passenger. You're the gardener. You start noticing your mental landscape like a landscape gardener. Pull out the thorns, trim the overgrowth, plant seeds that nurture growth. And you don't have to be perfect at it. Some weeds will sneak back. Some days your mind will be a jungle. But every day you practice, every time you pause before feeding a thought, you're winning. Here's how you start. When a negative thought surfaces, ask, is this true? Is this helpful? Most often, the answer is no. So you replace it with something constructive. When you feel doubt creeping in, you whisper, this is a thought, not a fact. You separate emotion from reality. When you feel overwhelmed, you focus on one tiny positive, your breath, the sun outside, a smile from a stranger. 3 simple moments. You think, I can't do this. Instead, you say, I'm learning how. The thought shifts from a brick wall to a stepping stone. You wake up tired and tell yourself, I'm exhausted and still here. That honesty becomes fuel, not a reason to quit. You catch a jealous thought about a friend's success. Instead of bitterness, you think, their success doesn't diminish mine. The garden grows a little more. You realize your mind is like a radio dial. You can't always control what stations pop in, but you can choose which ones to listen to. And the more you tune into positive, constructive thoughts, the easier it gets. You become a conscious thinker, not a victim of your mind, but its master. And with each thought you nurture, you craft the life you want. Because ultimately, you don't just become what you think. You become what you choose to think. You're sitting with your thoughts, but instead of wrestling them, you start listening. Not just to the loud ones shouting for attention, but to the quiet whispers beneath. The subtle feelings, the half-formed ideas, the deep-down truths you usually avoid. This is where emotional intelligence lives. It's not about being perfect at feelings. It's about being aware of them, knowing what's bubbling inside before it spills over. You realize your emotions aren't enemies. They're messengers. They bring news about your needs, values, and boundaries. Instead of pushing them down or acting out, you welcome them with curiosity. What are you trying to tell me, anger? Why are you here, sadness? Is this fear protecting me or trapping me? You learn to name your feelings, because naming is taming. It turns a storm into a weather report. You also start noticing how your emotions affect your body. The tight jaw when you're stressed, the fluttering stomach when you're excited, the heavy chest when you're overwhelmed. This connection between mind and body becomes your compass. Let's check 3 moments where emotional intelligence changes the game. You feel irritation rising during a meeting. Instead of snapping, you note the sensation, breathe, and choose your words carefully. The meeting stays calm. Your friend seems distant. Instead of assuming they're upset with you, you ask gently. They open up about their own struggles. You're faced with a tough decision. You check in with your gut and your heart, not just your logic. The choice feels clearer. Emotional intelligence teaches you patience with yourself and others. It helps you respond instead of react. You start building bridges instead of walls, and the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. You're not just surviving your emotions, you're mastering them. Because mastering your mind includes mastering your heart. And when you do, everything shifts. You start to notice the stories your mind tells you about yourself, those repetitive scripts that shape how you show up in the world. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. I don't deserve success. These narratives aren't truths. They're just stories you've accepted over time. But now you have the power to rewrite them. Imagine your mind as a stage, and you're the playwright. You decide the script, the characters, the ending. Instead of the victim, you cast yourself as the hero. Instead of setbacks, you write challenges. Instead of failure, you draft lessons. This shift changes everything. You start to catch negative self-talk mid-scene and rewrite it on the fly. I can't do this becomes, I'm learning every day. I'll never be confident becomes, confidence grows with practice. Your new script isn't about perfection. It's about progress. Let's explore 3 scenes where this rewriting happens. You face rejection, but instead of sinking, you tell yourself, this is a plot twist, not the end. You stumble in social settings and remind yourself, every hero has awkward moments. You worry about the future and shift to, I'm building my story one day at a time. By owning your narrative, you empower your mind. You're no longer a passenger. You're the author, and the story is yours to create. You find yourself tangled in decisions that don't feel like decisions, the kind where every option seems equally complicated and your mind spins like a hamster on a wheel. You call this analysis paralysis, and it's a thief of time and peace. But today, you learn a new way to break free. You realize that perfect decisions don't exist. There's only good enough and now. Instead of waiting for clarity to land like a lightning bolt, you decide to move forward with what you have. Imperfect, but intentional. You give yourself permission to try, fail, learn, and adjust. Because every decision is a step on a winding path, not a final destination. Here's how you practice. Set a timer. 5 minutes to decide. No second guessing. Focus on what matters most, not what's perfect. Trust that you can course correct later. 3 moments in action. You pick a book to read without obsessing over reviews. You respond to an email without drafting 10 versions. You accept an invitation, knowing you can say no next time. You shift from freeze to flow, and your mind thanks you for the break. Because mastery isn't about never messing up, it's about choosing to move forward anyway. You realize that mastering your mind isn't about silencing thoughts or crushing emotions. It's about harnessing them, like a surfer riding a wave instead of fighting the ocean. You learn to notice your thoughts and feelings as energy, sometimes calm, sometimes wild. Instead of resisting, you channel that energy into action. Frustration becomes fuel for change. Excitement powers creativity. Anxiety sharpens your focus. You develop rituals to shift your energy when it feels stuck. Breathing exercises, movement, journaling, or simply stepping outside. You become aware of your mind-body connection, learning that what you do with your energy shapes your reality. Here are 3 ways you harness mental energy. When overwhelmed, you take 10 deep breaths to reset. When restless, you move, stretch, walk, dance. When distracted, you journal the swirling thoughts, clearing space for focus. This flow transforms your mind from a battlefield to a dance floor. You stop battling yourself. You start partnering with yourself. And in this partnership, you find strength, peace, and progress. You're approaching the finish line, not of mastering your mind, but of this chapter in your journey. The realization settles softly. Mastery is not a destination. It's a lifelong dance. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow, sometimes you stumble, sometimes you soar. You understand now that every moment, every thought, every choice is part of an intricate rhythm. The mind isn't an enemy to conquer. It's a partner to understand. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. Present with your fears and hopes. Present with your chaos and calm. Present with the unfinished symphony inside your head. This presence is your anchor. It grounds you when storms rise. It guides you when paths blur. It whispers the truth you've been seeking. You are more than your thoughts. You are more than your doubts. You are the quiet space between the noise. And that space, it's where your true power lives. So, you close your eyes, breathe in deep, and gently remind yourself, no matter what your mind throws at you, you have the calm, the strength, and the wisdom to master it, one thought at a time.